All right, so we can start with our webinar. So today we're gonna start be talking about how to start our RPA journey. So let's go to our webinar's agenda. We're gonna talk about how to start with automation. We're gonna talk about what kind of industries are gonna be okay for automating, and basically we're gonna discuss what to do to start our adventure with automation. So let me just start by saying who I am. My name is Jack Glowatsky. I'm a strategic partnership manager at Giant. Basically, with the company for over 3 years. Giant is an automation company which is on the market for the last 8 years, since 2015. And we have our own RPA solution, which is called Giant Studio. And I'm going to tell you about what kind of processes we can automate using our solution. So first, how does it work? Basically, our software works like exactly like an employee would work using a mouse and the keyboard. Basically, what our robots are basically software. So we have our robots are software which operates other software. So basically, our robots, when I'm referring to robots, what I mean is our software solution Giant Studio, which can operate basically others operating systems. So for example, if we have an employee who has to open up Excel and put some information in the Excel file every day, then this employee will then we can, for example, write a robot using our solution, write a small program software system which can basically do the same task as the employee. So everything which we have, which is done by the human being, we're using the mouse and the keyboard, we can automate using our solution. So we can exactly mimic the movements of the mouse and the keyboard. We can exactly mimic what the employee does. So we can automate, operate other software systems, other operating systems. So let's talk about what kind of companies and industries we can use automation for. So basically, with Giant, we have a long history of automating different processes in different industries. And one of our strongest industries would be hospitals, healthcare. We have a big experience in automating insurances and processes related to insurance, checking the insurance in hospitals, but also we can automate processes in different industries, like for example, banking, finance, real estate, travel, almost anywhere where we have processes done by an employee on the computer, we can automate this process using our solution. So basically, what kind of companies are good for automation? Almost any kind of company is good for automation. Any kind of company who has a problem with too much workload, right? So if you have too much work and your employees are telling you that they are struggling to keep up, then you can think about automating some of the processes, because maybe the situation is that you basically need some automation tools, because the processes which your employees do are repetitive, and they can actually be automated, so they don't need to waste time. They can actually focus on different kind of process, different kind of activities, more high level activities. So let's talk about more about departments where we can implement automation. So here are a couple of departments which you can find in almost any company, which is HR, accounting, sales, production. These are just examples, because in each one of those departments we can find many processes of which can be automated using our solution. For example, in HR, we can calculate payroll using our solution, using our robots, instead of an employee checking every month all the absences, all the all the days off of the employee, all the working hours. We can have an automation. We can have a robot which is going to calculate all this information, put it in one software, for example, make all the necessary calculations, and then just send the report to the employee, which needs to accept it. So basically, in every one of those departments, we can have different processes which we can automate. So let's move on to the next slide. What kind of software systems can we automate using our solution? Basically, we can automate every kind of application, any kind of software system which is based on the Windows environment. So if we have an operating system which is Windows, then we can automate without any problem almost any application in this which is based on this operating system. We can also automate any kind of web browser, Internet Explorer or Edge or Firefox or Google Chrome. All of those are easy for us to automate. So basically, we can automate all of those SIS software, which is using browsers. So each one of those software system SAS systems is also easy for us to automate. Also, any kind of CRM system or ERP system which you might have in your organization right now, we can automate. So that means that your employee doesn't have to put manually information into those systems. We can have an automation which is going to put all those necessary information into the system for your employee. So the employee just needs to just work with the result. Just the robot does all the calculation, all the gathering of the information. Employee just needs to work with the final result, so they just need to make the decision, and that's it. Let's move on. Next, basically, what kind of identification of the process is a very important part of our RPA journey, because basically the process which we identify is very important, because we need to focus on the correct process in the organization. So we need to start automating those processes which need to be automated, and not try to overcomplicate and look for overcomplicated, super long process. Instead of that, we try to focus on identifying the places in organizations where they have too much workload. So, for example, in accounting, if you have an employee whose his only job is just to generate invoices, and every day he's only generating invoices, and so this might be a perfect situation, perfect example for implementing automation. Then we can just automate the whole process, and we can free up this space of this employee, this workspace, for him to do something more demanding, something more interesting. So let's move on to the next slide. Yes, so here are a couple of examples of processes in different departments which you can automate. As I mentioned before, invoice generation is a good example. So employee, instead of focusing on generating invoices, they can just focus on different things. Invoice generation is a very simple process, because it just demands us taking information from different sources, putting it into one place, making a calculation, and generating the result report. Payroll, I also mentioned before. Data scraping is a good example. For example, in real estate, we have this process where we have an organization where every day they have to go and check new offers for real estate, right? So an employee has to go every day and visit, for example, 5 or 6 websites where they have to check information regarding new posted offers for rental, for sales in real estate, right? So basically, this employee has to go and to the same websites every day and check the same parameters of search, using the same search parameters. So instead of him doing this, we can have an automation, a robot, which is going to gather all this information every day before work, so the employee can work with fresh information at the beginning of his work day. So instead of going and manually doing this job, he just works with the final results, with the final result, which is just checking what kind of new offers are there on the market. Lead generation also is a very good example of where we can implement automation. This is in sales department, so we can use our robots for marketing, for lead generation, for generating interest in our products in sales. And I will have an example regarding this later on, so I won't get into many details right now, but at the end we will have a couple of case studies, so I will tell you a little bit more about that. Let me just check our chat box. We have a chat right now, and you can ask questions, and I will answer them at the end of our presentation. Also, if you need to talk with me privately, if you want to schedule a meeting with me, there is a button on the top of the screen which you can use for scheduling a personal one-on-one meeting with me, where I can answer more of your questions. We can talk about specific examples of the process which you have in your organization, or I can help you identify the process. Without further ado, let's move on. Exactly. This is, as I mentioned before, start small, expand later. Most of the companies which we have right now within our clients basically started with a simple process. For example, checking if you have an inventory. We had a great example of a pharmacy where they had a super huge inventory of medicine, different kind of medicine, and they had to check all the data expiring dates on all of those medical supplies every day. So basically, an employee was only sitting every day and checking all in the inventory every expiring date, and he had to do this manually in the system, checking for the ones which are close to expiring, putting them on the list. So instead of him doing this, which is not a very satisfying work, we create an automation, which is a very simple automation, just working in one system, only automating one software, basically checking for all the expiring dates and just sending a notification to the employee when the date is close. So basically, very small process, just a few steps, but very effective. The implementation took us very fast, a very small time, and the results were almost instant because the employee was completely free to do other things, and they were just working with the final result. So let's move on to the next slide. What do we need to start automation from us, from the perspective of a company which does the implementation? For us, the most important thing is to have a detailed description of the process, and if it's possible, also the video of the process. Why do we need this? Because we need to know exactly what what the employee does on the screen, which buttons they press, what is the movement of the mouse and the keyboard. If they put the login and the password, if they log into a system, we need to have this login and this password as well, because our robots is gonna use the same credentials as the employee, so they're gonna log into the system exactly as the employee. And basically we need to know each step, what the robot is supposed to be doing. So after they log into the system, they need to click on specific buttons. We need to know exactly what buttons are there. So that's why it's best for us to have a video of the process. You can just record your screen, and you can just ask your employees to record their screens while they're doing uh, specific processes. So this is a very important thing for us to have a detailed description. We need to know exactly what the robot is supposed to be doing, and after that, the creating of the automation is actually very simple. As I said, we need the access to the systems, to all the necessary systems. If you have a couple of them, we need to have all those logins. They will be stored on your machine, so we won't have any access to these credentials. We're gonna set up the robot exactly as you want, so it can be set up uh, on your virtual machine, for example, but it can also be set up on your computer. We can set up the robot basically in almost any environment. So it's actually very safe, because once the robot is installed on your environment, it doesn't matter if it's a virtual machine or your computer. Once the robot is installed, we don't have remote access to it to control it or to check it. It's completely done in your environment, so it's actually very safe. We have a lot of examples of our robots being used in financial organizations, which are very safe aware. So it's actually very safe to use our machines as well. But access to the systems and environment to set up the robot is another thing which we need to create our automation. After we have the description, the video, the access to the systems, as well as the environment to set up the robot, which is the virtual machine or a hard drive or hard drive of your computer, then we create a proof of concept, a demo robot, just to show you, after we have all the information, just to show you how fast and quick it is to create automation using our solution, how fast it is to implement RPA. We create a robot demo robot, basically a proof of concept, so you can see by yourself. We implement this proof of concept, and you can see for yourself after a couple of days that the robot is efficient. It generates a report. It shows you exactly how much work it's been doing. So after that, after we create this first skeleton, let's say, of the robot, we have the implementation, and in the implementation we're working with you, with your organization. So it's up to you where will we set up the robot. Is it going to be in the virtual machine, or is it going to be in the a stationary system somewhere? Then after we do the implementation, we of course do adjustments and measurements. This is actually a standard procedure, because RPA is kind of like a living organism. We create an automation, which is a robot which is clicking on the specific buttons on websites, right? So for example, if we have an update of the system, we might have a situation where we have to adjust the automation a little bit. But the great thing about RPA is that we can change different parts of the automation, because sometimes in the process some parts might be relevant, and then they might become not necessary or irrelevant in the future. So then we can uh, add some parts of the process, take some parts of the process out, and basically so this is adjustments are very important. And also measurements, because we can actually uh, uh, tell the robot what kind of measurements we need, right? We can measure each specific part of the robot process. We can have the time of the each record being processed by the robot measured. We can have each parameter of the work of the robot basically measured, so we know exactly how much of the work the robots are doing. We know exactly how much time we're saving. And let me just check the chat box. I see that we have a first question. Thank you, Paul, for the question. I would like to answer this at the end. Right now I just have a few short examples of our implementation, so just in a few minutes I will answer your question. So let's move on to the first example of an implementation which we were doing this year earlier. It's a manufacturer company based in northern Poland, with over 4,000 employees. The department was accounting, and the problem was that employees were manually putting information into systems and generating invoices. This process took about 4 hours per day, and to make matters worse, it had to be done after regular working hours, after the systems were already closed. And the solution was to create robot software automation to start working at a specific time, to gather all the necessary information and generate invoices, as well as checking for errors and sending the invoices to the customer. So let me just describe the process as it was step by step. So first, the robot opens the specific system at a specific time, which is after working hours. Then the robot takes the credentials and logs into the system. Then the robot searches for an uninvoiced shipments. After that, the robot fills in all information, checks the dates, etc. After that, the robot is generating the invoice. The robot is checking the invoice if it was generated in the correct way. And basically, after the robot checks that the invoice is complete and generated in the correct way, it sends the invoice to the customer. So basically, this automation was very straightforward, but it saved up a lot of time because an employee doesn't need to stay after work every day right now and send those invoices and generate those invoices, right? So this is actually a very efficient way to implement automation. Let's move on to the next examples. I see that there is more questions going on. I will answer them in a second. Let me just go to the next example. The next example was in City Hall in one of Polish cities. And the department and the problem was that one of the employees had to do manual backups of all the databases in the systems, which contained sensitive information and important information like regarding taxes, real estate, debt, regarding all the people living in the area, the specific city. And this information needed to be backed up and updated every day because it was very crucial information. So the solution was to create an automation, a robot using our solution to go and check the database every day and perform backups. And step by step, it looked very similar to the last process. So the robot opens up all dedicated systems, including logging into them. Then the robot performs backups of all required information, and the robot then copies the backup files to the online server, so the files are safe from now on. Uh, then the robot checks the dates on the servers and deletes all backup files, so it makes space, cleans the old backup files so we won't get confused. And after that, the robot checks the trash bin on the server as well. So we can also delete all backup files. So we actually are freeing up space on the server as well. And after it's done, the robot sends an email notification to the administrator reporting about the result of the action. And here also very important, if we have a problem with backing up of each system, we can actually have this in the report, right? So if the robot has any problem with any kind of file in its journey, it can also be included in the report, so the employee can proceed with those particular ones manually. They can just check what's going on. And let me just move on to the next and last example, and after that I will go to the questions. I see that there's more people writing. I'm very happy about that. Let me move on to the next last example. Last example is based on a mid-sized software vendor uh, handling leads in sales department. So the department's sales. The problem was there was a lot of traffic coming from the vendor's website and from different places where leads were generated, like landing pages and ads. And customers were filling out all the requested contact forms on the website, and it all went to the one email inbox. So basically, in order to have all of this information arranged and organized and to free up space so the employees don't have to go and manually put all this information into the CRM system, we created an automation to handle all the leads and distribute them to the sales representatives. And now how it works is that the robot is activated via email trigger. So every time an email shows up saying that a new form was filled out or a new contact is requested from a potential customer, the robot is activated and starts working. The robot takes all the information from the online contact form, including name, email, phone number, and all other information which we need from the contact form, and puts it into the CRM system. So the robot can operate the CRM system exactly like the sales representative, and the robot opens the CRM system, creates a contact card in the CRM system, fills out all the necessary information, including name, contact information. It can be company name, company size, industry. It can be different information regarding the potential customer. After that, the robot assigns the lead to a specific sales representatives and attaches all the necessary labels, so everybody knows who has what lead, which customer. And after doing all of this, the robot sends a notification to the employee that they have a new lead that they have to focus on, and as well as sending this information to the specific customer, telling them that they will be reached by one of our sales representatives at a specific time. So so basically, this is it from my side, because I see that we have a couple of questions. So I would like to go to the questions right now. In the meantime, I will show you my contact information. If you would like to contact me, you can see my email address on the screen, as well as my phone number, as well as you can scan this QR code to have all of my information on your mobile device. So let me go to the Q&A. Let me just start in the order directly. Paul, first question: what are the typical return of investments your clients achieve on their RPA implementation? There is no such thing as a typical implementation in RPA, because different process is different company will have a different return of investment on their implementation, because the different companies are in different sizes, right? So if we implement a robot which is gonna just generate invoices, but it will free up an employee who is working 8 hours per day only doing that, then the return of investment is huge, because our cost of our software compared to cost of an employee per month is just a fraction, just like a small fraction of this cost which you would have to have as an employer to for example, hire somebody to do this work, to hire a specialist to do this, or accountant, or anybody else. So returns of investment on implementing RPA depend on the time which we are saving by implementing automation, right? It depends how much time we're saving from a specialist, because we know that time from the specialist is very expensive. So basically, if we are saving 10 hours per week or 20 hours per week of this employee time, this is our return of investment. This is our saved time and saved money. But to tell you more, we would have to discuss to tell you precisely how much you could benefit using automation. We would have to have a specific conversation about specific process, and to tell you more. So please schedule a meeting if you wish with me, and I can tell you more. We can talk about examples. Okay, next question from Frank. Good presentation, thank you. How many transactions volume is required before it makes sense to automate a process? Good question. This is actually it actually depends on you, because you can feel in your organization when it's the time to have something automated. If you, for example, are dealing with a whole lot of emails coming into your organization, right? And there are different emails, so from different things, and they're all mixed together. You can have a robot, a small automation, just to handle that, just to sort out all the information from your email inbox, and put it into some other system. And so it can make sense for a small organization to implement automation, but it also makes sense for big organizations to implement automation. So it all depends on the volume, how much process you actually have. So because for example, payroll is a good example here, because if you have 20 employees in your organization, then you can do payroll manually without any problem. But if you have 1,000 employees or 2,000 employees, sometimes you have to hire an external company to handle this payroll, right? So instead of doing that, you can implement automation. You can have your own robot which is going to be do that for you, and it won't make mistakes, and it will always remember to do that, and it will never be late. So basically, implementing robots is only beneficiary for your company. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, what are the limitations? For example, if data is available, is RPA always an option? Uh, or are there legacy systems which you are not able to support with robots? Actually, this is a very nice question. We don't really have limitations as long as we have the Windows environment. As I said before, we most of our implementations are based in the Windows environment. We can also automate Mac OS X, but then it's more complicated for us. We mostly focus on Windows environment, but in this environment we can automate almost any kind of legacy system. Even if you have a super old legacy system which doesn't even have an open API, you can automate it using our solution, because our robots pretend to be humans, so they can operate the other software on the computer. They move the keyboard, they move the mouse, they use the keyboard. So basically, they are actually pretending to be employees, so they can open up other systems, even if it's a very old system. You can basically open it up using our robots can open it up and operate it just like an employee. So also we can automate old legacy systems as well as new operating systems which have open API are very easy to automate, because we can connect using API, and then the transfer is very smooth. So it's actually very easy for us. Okay, I see that there is more questions. I'm very happy to see that. Let's move on to the next questions. Next question. Why not connect email with sales leads directly to CRM? They all have connectors. Exactly. LiveSpace, Pipedrive, SF, HubSpot. Exactly. We are actually using one of those CRMs. We are using Pipedrive, and in our organization internally in Giant, we have everything automated, right? So we use our technology all the time, and for example, I have robot assistants, so whenever a lead shows up or anybody replies to one of my emails or email campaigns, automatically the robot takes all the information into Pipedrive, creates a contact card, creates an activity for me, so I know that I have to contact this person on a specific date. So actually, we use all those systems which you mentioned. We use all these systems which you mentioned, and we actually use RPA to connect them with each other. So we can automate HubSpot, we can automate Pipedrive, or any other kind of CRM system as well. But this is actually a very good question, because we can have anything connected, right? So you can also have Pipedrive connected, for example, to your manufacturing. If you have a manufacturing department in your company, it can be also connected to that using our solution. So it's actually a very nice question. Tomasz, if you want to talk more, please feel free to schedule a meeting with me. We can discuss automating Pipedrive, because we have actually experience in this section already. Let's move on to the next question. Can you share 2 or 3 case studies of good RPA implementation? Yes, I can, and I actually did before, earlier, like I think 10 minutes ago. I shared actually 3 examples of case studies, but don't worry, because we will send you, after this webinar is over, you're gonna receive a recording of this presentation. So we will have all this information on your email just after this presentation is going to be over. So no worries, you can rewind, you can stop, pause, and see all this for yourself. Let's move on. from Frank. Thank you, Frank. Uh, Great selling point for you. If we have data, you can automate. Basically, that's actually absolutely true. If you have data, if you have repetitive tasks which needs to be done with this data, right, this is a perfect situation for automation. So and I also want to stress that there's no good size for automation, because we have, for example, travel agencies, which are usually couple of people, like 5, 10 people, 15 people organizations, and they also implement automation, because this helps them out with the big amount of information which they have, because they have a lot of logistics, a lot of keeping up with hotels, with airplanes. So we can have a robot which is going to be checking all those things for them, and the organization doesn't have a lot of people, but they still implement automation with a very good result, because they have a lot of repetitive tasks which they have to do. And that's the only condition actually is to have a repetitiveness, repetitive tasks, and that's it. From my side, that would be it for now. Thank you everybody for participating. Thank you for your big activity, and we will send you an email after this presentation with all this information which was in this presentation, as well as contact information to me, so you can schedule a meeting if you have some example, or you want to talk about specific examples of automation. Here is my information again, so you can scan, or have a quick you can write down or take a picture of my information and contact me at your time. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We will see each other very soon on the next giant webinar, and I wish you all a great day. Thank you, and bye bye.